Welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattoo artists, collectors, apprentices, and the curious are all encouraged to join in these live streams to share with each other, inspire each other, ultimately create better art and tattoos together. This is the Tattoo Now show with Fawn Baker, who is the co-host and producer of the Tattoo Collecting podcast. So I'm pretty excited for this one. But in the meantime, I'm going to let everybody know a little bit about what's going on here with the Reinventing Network, some of the regular shows that we have, as well as thanking our sponsors. This is the perfect time to let us know if this is working for you. It's going out on the Tattoo Now and Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube, and it looks like it is working. We're also going out on a couple different Facebooks, and not sure it's going on the Facebooks, but that's okay. Whatever, Facebook, social media, we like to use it, but not be beholden to it. You might be on the podcast, listening to the replays. One way or another, the best way to get a hold of all of the programming is through the mobile app. Check out either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the Reinventing the Tattoo app. Please give it a kind review, constructive criticism to management at reinventingthetattoo.com. But right now the channels are all new. Same thing with the YouTubes and the podcast. If you please leave your kind reviews on those channels, it helps us boost up the ranks as well as sharing it around to your friends and stuff. And then, like I said, we're happy to get artist requests, anything, any constructive criticism, any requests, any sponsorship opportunities. Okay, it does look like it is now working officially on all of the Facebooks. Okay, so back to my quick script. Reinventing 24/7. I keep talking about all of the different art jams, the discussion panels, the webinars. There's so many things going on that it's hard to tell people where to start. So it's really simple to remember, reinventing247.com. And we have 4 or 5 replays going at any given time. If you don't know exactly what you want to watch, it's a great way to kind of sample what's going on any time of the day. Also, there are a couple more goodie bags up for grabs, or soon to be world famous Reinventing sample packs. Reinventing247.com, scroll down to the bottom and you fill out your address, your tattoo shop address. These sample packs include cartridges. Cheyenne Tattoo Equipment was kind enough to send us a whole mess of sample cartridges. And then Raw Pigments has sample pigments that go in these packs. So they only go to shops, but you fill out your address there, reinventing247.com. And depending on when you watch this, we will be sending you a sample pack. The weekly staple shows. So if you are interested in catching more programming like this, then now's your time to get your pen and paper out. Sundays at 1 o'clock with Jason Leeser is a Reinventing the Tattoo drawing group, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Times. All of these times are Eastern Standard, just happens to be where the office is. For these drawing groups, artists are encouraged to beam in, to do their homework. Everyone zooms in. Sometimes we have 4 people, sometimes we have 12 people. Either way, it's a lot of fun. So that's 1 o'clock on Sundays. 9 p.m. on Sundays is the Tattoo Weekly, which is hosted by Lauren Gregory, Jake Meeks, and I'm Gabe Ripley. And we go over some of the highlights of the previous week's programming. We talk about some of the things that we're excited about in the future. We usually go over a topic or two that's in the news, either controversial or bland because it's in the news. But one way or another, we discuss some of the topics, and then we'll usually dig something out of the archive. Pretty excited. So these are the regular shows. So that's the Tattoo Weekly, 9 o'clock on Sundays. Monday mornings, bright and early at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard, although we also have people beaming in from California, which is really early there. It's a drawing group with Kier. She's going to be taking over the Monday morning spots. 9 o'clock at night is a subscriber-only exercise with Guy Aitchison. So if you are a paid subscriber, then the Monday exercises are definitely for you. We go over homework from the week before. Guy Aitchison critiques your homework from the week before and then goes through an exercise, and then everyone beams in. It's pretty awesome to watch the effect that those classes have on people over the courses of months. It's pretty crazy. Let's see. Tuesdays at 10 a.m. is a drawing group with Ricardo. Wednesdays at 12 noon is the Tattoo Now show. That's actually what you're watching now. Thursdays at 12 noon is the Tattoo Collecting podcast. They're almost on episode 50 with Fawn Baker, who's up here actually, as well as Jordan Ruckus and a growing cast of tattoo collecting characters. Thursdays at 10 o'clock, just before that, is a fundamental subscriber exercise with Kier. It's for subscribers only, but all skill levels are encouraged to come and draw. You don't need to feel intimidated. Apprentices are encouraged. Some people are intimidated to draw with Guy. So if you watch those, but then you beam in on Thursdays, it's perfect. Okay, upcoming special events. The Inglorious Hoku and Adrian Dominic are going to be beaming in this Sunday, the 29th. Whatever, if you're watching this live, it's this Sunday. If you're not watching it, then it's probably on the replay. Either way, that's going to be pretty amazing. I think they're going to be doing don't quote me on this. This is just complete rumor, but a dual ZBrush tutorial. Anyways, they're in Australia in lockdown. So hopefully a lot of people tune in for that. And my guess is that we should get them either some tips or get a paid thing going with those guys, because it sucks when they're in lockdown. A few ways to support the Reinventing the Tattoo community if you're not a paid tattoo subscriber is real world events. October 3rd to the 6th is the Paradise BYOB, paradisebyob.com. Bring your own brains. Yeah, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we'll be doing a lot of live webcasting. There's limited seating, so definitely sign up in advance. You can transfer your pre-sale tickets to webcast tickets. We'll be webcasting out the whole thing, but there are studio packs. It's only like $100 for the 4 days. It's not a weekend ticket. It's a week start ticket. It's the first 4 days, Sunday to Wednesday. Tattooers days off. Paradise BYOB, the programming is awesome. November 12th to the 14th is the Brussels Tattoo Convention. Nick Baxter, Ivana, and I are slated to do seminars. A lot of reinventing people are coming over. Again, pandemic pending, but we are planning on it. Next year, 2022, we're definitely penning these events in. February 5th and 6th at the Red Tree True Tubes compound in Columbus, Ohio is a Reinventing the Tattoo live event. The 5th is a Saturday. We'll be doing for the public, collectors, apprentices, art jams, that kind of thing, maybe free consultations, whatever. Then on the 6th will be for professional development. So we'll do seminars, that kind of thing. May 20th to the 22nd is Hell City Columbus, hellcity.com. July 8th to the 10th is the Rock River Tattoo Art Expo, tattooartexpo.com. Guy's going to have a great reinventing track and a little theater hall there, so that's going to be pretty sweet. 100 tattooers right on the river there. We are starting to fill up those tattooer booths or art booths. If you're interested, let us know right away. July 29th to the 31st, 2022 is a Rubber City Invitational in Akron, Ohio, Tony Urbanik. October 20th to the 23rd is the Paradise Tattoo Gathering, is returning next year to Jiminy Peak, which is going to be great. Okay, this is working everywhere. So I just want to plug our sponsors because they make all this programming free. Courses.reinventingthetattoo.com, or just go to reinventingthetattoo.com and click on courses. The Reinventing the Tattoo Canon is Guy's subscriber community, the exclusive community. It's like $300. It's less than $1 a day per year. And it gets access to dozens of hours of seminars, Monday exercises, and the replays of the Monday exercises. It's out of control for less than $1 a day. You can get critiqued by Guy once a week. It's out of control. Also, we've got seminars from Andre Malcolm, BJ Betts, Bob Tyrell. All of the Paradise BYOB seminars will be streaming through Reinventing the Tattoo's growing courses. So courses.reinventingthetattoo.com. Interstate Inc. LA, that's the Instagram, at Interstate Inc. LA is headed up by church. He got out there a couple of years ago to clean himself up. The shop, they're all in recovery. They're clean and sober. If you're looking for a supportive environment, then you definitely got to check it out, connect with them. Or if you know somebody that needs to be in an awesome, again, environment that's clean and sober and very supportive of the lifestyle, they are looking for guests and tattooers. And again, as long as you stay clean and sober and do awesome, great stuff, then it's a good place for you. inkjetstencils.com. You can print out your stencils from your mobile, from your iPads or your Photoshop. And when you adjust everything appropriately, you can print out sleeves, you can print out flash. It saves you time, money. They are wicked busy sending out the paper sheets and the inks. inkjetstencils.com. rawpigments.co, acrylic free and vegan friendly. Means that the inks won't dry out in the cup. Definitely reinventing 24/7 to get the samples if you are in time. rawpigments.co. worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive event tattoo convention listings that existed or that exists. I know I tried to copy it like 10 years ago. After like 3 days, there's no way. Alex is busy keeping everything updated through this crazy COVID era. DLize Pro is known as Dermalize worldwide. It's a healing wrap that helps you protect your art. If you are wrapping things up with cling wrap, especially to go, it's designed not to breathe. You definitely want to give Dermalize a shot. I just got the Total Tattoo magazine in. It's got actually an article on the future tattoo conventions, which was it was one of these programming. So we want to thank Total Tattoo for making a magazine article out of it. You can see all the DLize Pro artists. It's like a bazillion of them. Check it out. They have videos and stuff. Use it the right way, and it's great. Like I said, it's designed to heal tattoos. Tattoonow.com, that's actually me. I am a computer geek, so I am taking care of all the websites as well as offsite search engine optimization. So whether you're a website client of mine or anybody does your website, I can help you with search engine optimization hours and also client relationship tools. Anyways, I could computer geek out and help you make the most out of, to maximize your artistic potential, your tattoo artistic potential. Lastly, GuyAitchison.com is the foundation and inspiration and driving force and spirit behind reinventing tattoo, both the canon and this community. He wants everybody to share with each other, to inspire each other. If you check out his website, GuyAitchison.com, or just buy anything from the reinventing.com, then he makes all of his own DVDs, machines, paintings, the book, the bioencyclopedia. It took like 8 years on the bioencyclopedia. Okay, so I'm going to I'm not hopping into the background now. That's crazy. I'm going to bring Fawn on and ask to unmute. So positive reviews and shares and stuff out. If you're looking to sponsor Reinventing or have guest recommendations, management at reinventingthetattoo.com. So Fawn, so now I guess I'm shifting gears. Usually I'm like, and now I'll pass it off to the host, but this is actually the Tattoo Now show. So welcome to the Tattoo Now show. I guess I need to get my teaser bumper together, but this is fun to be back in this seat where we interview tattooers from all around the world. I am not a tattooer, so we get a little less technical, but I'm fascinated by the effect, and especially the positive effects that tattoos have on clients, as well as businessy things. My computer skills transfer over into business, and Fawn, spans a couple different nooks and crannies of the tattoo world. She's an amazing tattooer. I have her portfolio fired up here. She works at Red Tree Tattoo Gallery. That's Derb's mastermind compound. It's pretty awesome. It's got a ton of great artists, so it's just a feat to be a resident there to begin with. Mm-hmm. She also runs around with True Tubes at conventions and whatnot, so has a unique perspective on tattoo supply companies. So without getting into any trade secrets or anything, it's always fun to hear about kind of that perspective. And True Tubes, I believe up until this point, is not owned by anybody except for Derb. So they, an artist-owned tattoo supply company. There's only a couple that still exist, it seems. And then Tattoo Collecting Podcast. From the get-go, it seemed like she was a driving force and a co-producer and co-host behind the Tattoo Collecting Podcast. Now, I think last week was episode number 50.
Yep.
So that means that it's just about a full year. Oh, shit, incoming calls and stuff.
That's all right. It's the story of our lives.
Woohoo! It's reality TV. So, Fawn, well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you must have talked tattoos. I don't know what we could talk about that would be covering new ground, but hopefully we could get hit upon some of the topics and teasers that people can then go into the Tattoo Collecting Podcast and dive in, because those podcasts are like an hour and a half to 3 hours a piece.
We try to keep them under 3. Usually once we hit the 3-hour mark, it's like, okay, well, we'll see you next week. But it's really been a cool thing. There are a ton of things that, like, as a tattooer, there is a ton of educational material out there, thanks to like platforms like Reinventing. There's a lot of information for tattooers to educate themselves to be better tattooers and things like that. But one of the gaps that's missing is, how do collectors learn how to be a better collector? You know what I mean? And that, for me, somebody who, I don't share a lot of the cover-ups that I do, but I have done more than my share of like cover-ups and reworks, and like the conversations over and over again with those clients are, if I would have known better, I would have done things so differently. So, back in the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of information. There were fewer tattooers. There were no shows. There was no information. So like, you get an excuse if you were getting tattooed in the 90s or previously for not knowing how to like hunt people down, or how to actually like politely reach out to a busy artist, And there's a lot of like etiquette that's lost on the people that don't live in the community like we do. And
sure,
how do you teach somebody the etiquette of a community when they're not in the community? They just want to collect a piece of artwork from the community. Yeah. So,
and it used to be so like standoffish.
Yeah. And, we're not rough biker types anymore. I mean, there are still those kinds of tattooers. I'm not saying they don't exist, sure. But like, so many tattooers that I know are just like passionate artists, and we love what we do. And, so there's this bridge that needs to be built between the collector and the tattooer, just so we're not butting heads.
You mean that you're building? So, that is actually one of the first things I realized I missed. Of course, I'm sure you do the same thing after the intros. I'm like, oh man, I missed like 3 things I meant to mention. But you're also a tattoo collector with an amazing collection. So maybe we should just start there with, I suppose everybody's first entry into the tattoo world really is first as a newbie, but then as a collector. Do you want to talk a little bit about your personal experience of collecting tattoos? And then I'll fire up some pictures in the background here. And everyone has to bear with me a little bit with the pictures because I did not order them. But
so I started collecting tattoos. I was 18. I didn't rush into it. I had been like researching for like maybe a year and a half before my friend and I jumped down the rabbit hole and like took the leap and got our first tattoos. But we grew up in West Michigan, so there were tattoo shops, but there were not a lot of tattoo shops. And it was 2004, I believe. So at that time, if you found a good artist, you were lucky. And I was reading magazines. I knew who some of like the heavy hitters were, but I didn't know how to get in touch with them or anything like that. It never even occurred to me that I could just reach out to one of these artists from a magazine. But I found a lady in Saugatuck, Michigan named Carissa Gray, and I've gotten other work from her since my first tattoo, but my experience with her was fantastic. She was educated. She was an art nerd like I am. I just had the confidence that whatever she did on me, I wasn't going to like scrutinize and be like, well, I could have done better than that. That was always kind of one of my biggest fears early on as a collector, being an artist myself. And, I was in art school and like, I wanted to be like a classical painter. Like I wanted to be one of the next masters. So when I've got that bar and standard set so high for my own work, it makes it really scary to potentially walk around with something that might not meet that mark. So for me, I knew I had to do a lot of homework, and I knew I had to find somebody that like I looked up to as an artist. But not
Yeah.
everybody has that mindset when they go into it. So back again to the tattoo collecting podcast, the show, like it's just to bridge that gap, because for me it was a struggle. For me, it took a lot of work to find a really good artist in those days. Where like now things have changed. Now it's just a matter of.
Did you get any shitty tattoos or?
I'm proud to say I have not. I'm really proud of all my tattoo work. My very first tattoo, if I would have known that I was going to end up like making the commitment to like go for a full body suit, my first tattoo would have been so much larger. And my first tattoo was a Andy Warhol piece. So, to me, it's kind of timeless. Not everybody's into Warhol the way that I am, but I absolutely love all of his work. I love what he does with color and simplifying things. I also love the way that he like illustrated his projects. You know what I mean? It's almost like he was a director and other people helped his vision come true, like with the whole warehouse that he had. And so there's just a lot about Warhol that like whether you like the physical art that he made, there's a lot of just very inspiring ways that he ran his life and ran his work for me.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I'm going to fire up the your back piece here, and then I've got a couple of the other pieces.
So this one is cut 2. After my first tattoo, it was several years before I got any more work, and I got a couple smaller pieces. But I was like 27 when I started my leg sleeve. And then once I started my leg sleeve with Adam, I was fully committed to a bodysuit. So a few years later, I actually talked to Russ a few times about this project before he was ready to commit. I feel like he thought we just weren't really on the same page. And actually, this process is something really cool to talk about, because Russ was so like offstandish about my ideas. I just wanted something huge on my back, and I wanted something that was like a derivative of Frank Lloyd Wright, whether it was like something architectural of his, or like maybe one of his like stained glass panels, or maybe multiples of his stained glass panels. So we'd been emailing back and forth, and we talked at a couple of conventions, but Russ is still like, I don't know. So he goes ahead and he schedules me an appointment, and I travel down to Georgia, knowing full well that we haven't even like committed to starting this project yet. Like this is still just like, if we can figure out what you want and like the way that I can do it, I'll do it for you. But we were still just like, it was very gray territory. But we sit down and we start talking, and I'm like, in person, I'm just telling him more about my ideas, but my ideas are very vague. So finally, Russ is like, so you don't want me to copy any of these stained glass things? I was like, no, just like inspiration. Like if you looked at that and like wherever that made your imagination run, that's what I'm thinking. And he was like, oh, okay, all right. I think he was under the impression that I wanted like complete replication of something from Frank Lloyd Wright, but there's really so much freedom. But anyways, he was like, have you ever been to the Arizona Biltmore? I was like, well, I mean, yeah, I've been for Hell City. I go there. Yeah. At least a few, like at that time, I think I'd been to 3 Hell Cities out in Arizona. But he was like, I've got these photos of the Biltmore blocks. Let me play with them tonight. So he actually took the Biltmore block, which is a block that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. And it's based on the mathematic equation for the refraction of light. So it's like the epitome of sacred geometry. So Russ took that tile and then like tessellated it on itself 4 times. And that's how we came up with this like perfectly symmetric, giant, sacred looking, Aztec looking pattern. So it started with a Frank Lloyd Wright block from the Biltmore. And then Russ kind of just like superimposed it so it would be symmetric in all directions.
It's awesome. I got to get back to the other picture of all the back pieces.
So this was out in Arizona after the last Hell City Phoenix. We went, it was 120 degrees that day, and Derb took us all up Camelback. It was so hot.
Nice.
So we've got Brian Midkiff with the Beatles piece. Derb did that one.
Derb did that one, yeah.
We've got Ben
So
Thomas.
Tim Hoyer?
Yep,
Tim
Tim
Hoyer
Hoyer did Derb's back piece.
Classic.
Ben Thomas, between Brian and Ben, he's our I call him our correspondent. He's our regular, I guess, other co-host, guest, correspondent on the tattoo collecting show. And then, of course, you got me on the end, but it was kind of nice to be able to like, and there happened to be a professional photographer up at the top of the mountain when we got there. So we had like a little impromptu photo shoot with all of our cheekies, and we really had a lot of fun that day. There's one shot, I need to get it from Ben, but Ben's got a shot of all four of us taking pictures of each other's backs. So you can see like all of our cameras lined up and then all of our back pieces. Ben has that shot. That's a super fun one.
Awesome. Is this, you've got a couple of the other pieces that you've collected here, and then we'll get into your work, of course, but
so this one is a collaborative piece. You can see my back piece on my butt cheek there wasn't complete yet. We were mid progress on that whole project. But this piece was a collaborative piece between Russ Abbott and Tofi, and Tofi's from Poland. So I was fortunate enough to be his very first tattoo in the United States.
Oh, fuck yeah. And he did a collaborative with Russ, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know, one of the cool things about this project, it was a huge project. It was 2 artists working on me. It was 9.5 hours. Like, this tattoo takes up 2/3 of my upper leg. It's not just one panel, but like 2. It wraps all the way around. But one of the cool things about this, like being a growing tattooer myself, and then having the privilege to be worked on by 2 people at the same time that I've looked up to for so long, that work incredibly differently, but incredibly the same at the same time. It was a privilege to be able to learn while each of them were learning from each other. And this was a piece that was on my leg. So I could, unlike my back and unlike other tattoos that I've had that were like more painful, with this, I could watch what each of them were doing. And I was in the middle of getting my chest tattooed and my back tattooed. So to be tattooed not on my torso was a walk in the park. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's easy to have 2 people work on you at one time, but to go from like torso work that's just brutal to like, okay, well, this is 2 people, but it's so much more superficial when you're out on the limbs.
Yeah, but even then, the thighs still have a tendency to creep up on people. Maybe just because they're so big, so it's like, you know, you almost inevitably have to be on hour 6. Like, how long did that take?
This was 9.5 hours with both of them.
Of 2 people. So
in reality, that's a 20-hour tattoo that I got in a day.
And did you do anything, mentally or physically to prepare for such
trauma? It was so
trauma?
funny. So obviously my arms aren't tattooed yet. I've got my hand done, but my arms aren't tattooed. And if my hair is grown out a little bit, you can't even see the tattoos on my head at all. So I actually went down to Georgia for an event that Russ had that was called Launchpad. And it was a Tattoo Smart event where he basically showed us several different workflows. Mike Chamber came and showed us his workflow through Tattoo Smart and Procreate. And then Tofi showed us how he worked in ZBrush. So it was a really cool experience. And
yeah, I remember seeing that.
I myself, I tend to work things out with a pencil and paper still. I'm more likely to like pull up some references and then grab a Sharpie marker and start drawing on you. However, I love having those tools. I love having the ability to like manipulate things and warp things in Clip Studio, or to pull them into Procreate and like overlay and superimpose. And then now I've got my reference to draw from. So, you know, I might not be taking an exact stencil from these quick mock-ups that I build, but it gives me that visual thing that now I can lay out my whole project from. But anyways, so I was down there, and there was this whole huge group of tattooers, and they all knew that I was getting tattooed the day after the event, and people were welcome to stay and like so they could watch and ask questions and kind of see the process. And then people kept asking me if I was nervous, and like, I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. They're like, oh, you don't know what you're getting into with two people. And I was like, I've already had two people work on my chest at the same time. If I can handle under boob, nipple area at the same time as my collarbone, I feel like I can handle my thigh. So I feel like a lot of other tattooers that were there, like just in attendance, I feel like they were excited for me, but they thought that I had bitten off more than I could chew. But I that's probably the only time that I've gone into a large tattoo with no nervousness whatsoever, just because for me, I was looking at it like this is a break from my back. And, you know, every time I sit with Russ, I try to hit like the 5-hour mark. But it, you know, some days we hit 7 or 8 hours. So those are really long sessions on like your kidneys, your like the lower, like sacral area of the back, like right above the butt crack. Awful.
Yeah.
Like so many parts of the back are really challenging for different areas. So for me, it was like, and mind you, I was still in the middle of having my chest worked on by two people. So to take a break from those areas to jump down to my leg was, I'm not going to say it was a walk in the park, but it was just much less of a challenge. Oh yeah, look at that look on my face. That's me being tough right there. But I'm really dying on the inside.
Well,
so to have the two of them working on my leg, I don't know if I've got any photos of it, but I've got pictures of me during the session, and I've got like a can of Sprite in my hand, and like you can, my face is just interested, and like both of them are like concentrating hard, and like needles are going like crazy, but I'm just like bright-eyed and like, oh, I see what you're doing.
This is easy. I got this.
Yeah. So for my leg, that was a really special one to just be able to actually learn from both of them at the same time. And then there was a point where like Tofi was showing Russ a few like very specific nuanced techniques of like basically inserting the ink. And it was cool to kind of see somebody that I look up to as much as Russ, like to see him like concentrating hard and like learning and absorbing new tricks the way that I do. And to see Tofi, not that I had met Tofi before, had a relationship with him, but like to see somebody else that I respect equally concentrating and equally like borrowing tricks from Russ. And I had the privilege of being comfortable enough to actually absorb a lot of knowledge from that session. So
I mean, that kind of is it, right? You know, I mean, I have a unique vantage point, right? Because I don't like create art. And I realized like, 15 years ago that and I just realized how much time it's going to take. The point is, I get to observe and work with so many amazing artists. Like all of the masters, for the lack of a better word or for the need to put a label, part of what gets them there is that's the way they are. It's like you can watch somebody ceiling lower by the amount that they actually feel like they know. And and inevitably, when you talk about like the mountain metaphor, it's like once you get to the top of a mountain, you realize you're just part of a mountain range, and there's other bigger mountains to climb, but as soon as you really kind of think, you know what, I'm almost there, then you are almost there. Whereas, but then
you said something really important. You said it's a mountain range and there's another mountain. So like you can climb to the top and you can master this one trick in this one genre, but there's still that thing over there that I want to do too. And I want to do that just as good as everybody else. So that was a really good analogy. Yeah, that was a super good analogy. It's like you might be at the pinnacle of the mountain, but there's a lot of other mountains in the range. And like to really be good, you've got to climb the top of all of those mountains. And then you take all of those tricks and you combine them, and now you've got something new that nobody else might be doing.
And a lot of it you can't really even see until you get there, right? So I mean, but that's the beauty of it, right? It's like all of a sudden you get to a point, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I could actually understand it more. I could see it. Like some of the effects or some of the energies you like start to tap into without understanding fully, and that's where, to your point, or back to your point of like, you could have conversations, with Russ and with Tofi, and all of a sudden, like you're cluing in with what they're doing. Then you take one of their seminars, and all of a sudden everything crystallizes one more round. Like they're putting it then in their order. Anyways, what I was thinking is, Guy or Baxter, Ivana, all of the or Carrie Barber, like. Or Freddie Negretti, or like one of the traditional guys. I saw one of his black and gray pieces recently. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. And I mean, not that I should even be surprised by that, but it takes a certain mentality to always be on the path, I guess, no matter how old you get or how good you get. And again, part of the way they get there is that they share with other people and enough other people that it comes back. And they're there to take it back.
Yeah, one of the things I like to keep in mind, and I've been like this about my artwork forever. So I feel like it's just been really helpful as a tattooer to not like let egos get in the way and things like that. But one of the things is to always remember it's easy to be a big fish in a small pond. You know what I mean? Like it's really easy to be the best tattooer in a small town. It's really easy to be one of the best tattooers in a big city. But when you look at the whole ocean, there are all these others that are just prolific and doing amazing things. So,
speaking of being pretty awesome in whatever sea, this is now your work I'm showing.
Yeah, this is, I actually just worked on her earlier this week. This is continuing down her leg now. Yeah, this is all freehand. There's actually 3 cover-ups buried in that.
So when people come to you with cover-ups, do you have some universal advice you've often given to people? Was there any lasering that was involved with this cover-up, or?
Nope. There was no lasering involved in this. The cover-up areas had to do with the colors I selected. So, and this is actually the upper part of this back is probably 3.5 or 4 years old now. But it was like blue, light blue and yellow with some purples, like right in the middle between her shoulder blades. And it had like some smoke and stuff around it. So obviously like that's kind of the palette that I chose for that area. And, but our kind of idea was to just like combine a mandala with a stained glass window and see where it went from there. She wanted to do some big bright flowers that weren't roses because she's got a lot of other roses on her body. So we went with tulips and made them crazy big and bright.
Yeah. What else we got here? Oop, I'm not driving as well as I should. There we go.
Okay.
There's some more work of yours. Oh, that's cool. I love going right down on the hand.
Yeah, this is actually Sam Dustin. It's my work, but it's on a tattooer named Sam Dustin. She's from West Michigan, South Haven, I believe. But this is, I'm going to start another piece even larger, but in the same, this is called a wigwag. If you're into glass art, this swirly pattern is called a wigwag. But I'm going to do another really large wigwag like this on Jules, one of Derb's assistants. We're going to cover up some dark lettering, but we're going to kind of steal this. This was just super fun. I just love when I have the chance to take glass art and pull it into tattoos because it's something that's so prismatic and it's something that looks like another realm. But at the same time, like all the physics principles that pull my trigger are there. When you see stuff like this pulled, it all follows the golden ratio because that's how physics work. And then with glass, no matter how far you stretch it or pull it, that image is going to stay there and it's going to stay super crisp. That's why, like, you're a computer nerd. You understand fiber.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I'm way
glass.
down with it. Yeah.
Glass is the magic thing that helps energy and information transfer the quickest. But at that same time, it's like there's magic that's captured in it. You know, it's almost like alchemy as well. So there's all these like sciences and physics and art and patience and everything that goes into glass art. And then when I have the opportunity or the challenge to then turn that into a tattoo, that's like the most fun for me. And then above here, we've got some fractals that we're working on, and those are actually morphing into a fern that's unraveling around her elbow. So she's got several different spirals that are working together. But I think we probably have one more session and this whole sleeve will be finished.
Nice. I always like when people go down on their hands. I guess as a tattooer, it's relatively natural. So when did you start? I guess we haven't talked about too much about the apprenticeship times. Um, I mean, I guess there's two kind of threads there. You want to talk a little bit about your apprenticeship story, and then, I mean,
So
yeah.
I didn't have an apprenticeship.
Okay, there
I
we
got
go.
shot
That was a quick story.
I got shot down and I got like led on
So,
a
so wait,
wild goose chase for
yeah,
about a year.
so that kind of leads me into my second, or could potentially lead me into my second question. Clearly there has been an imbalance in the tattoo world between males and females. Not that there haven't always been awesome female tattooers who have staked their claims.
So, okay, since you're bringing it up
yeah.
like this, I'm going to go ahead and tell the full story, but I'm going to leave out the name of the artist and all of that. And since then, I've worked on him, and that was kind of, I think, his ultimate apology for the way that he treated me. But so I made friends with this artist, and I was working as a graphic designer at the time for like this little sign shop in Marion, the town that I lived in. And just down the road, there was a tattoo shop. So on my way home one day, I was like, you know what? I need to stop in and see this guy. I'm gonna need to introduce myself, talk to him. So we hit it off. We make friends. We start shooting pool together. I start hanging out at the studio all the time. He knows I'm an artist. He knows I'm a designer. So I start like doing a lot of like, while he would be tattooing, I was just hanging out. So I'd start like drawing the lettering for his next tattoo, or I'd start like pulling flash together and making stencils just because like I was there hanging out. So like, I'll be helpful. Like, here's your lettering. There you go. Like, I was just playing with calligraphy for the last 3 years for no purpose whatsoever, but here's lettering to tattoo. So after a couple of months, I was like, should we like actually do like an apprenticeship? Should I do that? Like, I feel like I'd be really good at this. And he was like, yeah. Like, let's give it a little time and we'll start. And, it was always this like, we'll talk about that later on. So it had been several months and I had money set back. Like, I didn't know how much he was going to charge me. We'd never really talked about that. I'm smart enough to research how much equipment is. So like, I knew what I was going to need and things like that. So one day I was finally like, so when are we going to do this? Like, I've got like $6,000 set back. Like, when are we going to start this thing?
Damn. Yeah. That's what it takes.
Yeah, like I was prepared whenever he was ready to be like, let's jump in. So when I like put him on the spot and was like, when are we going to do this? He was like, you're just going to be wasting your time. Women don't succeed in tattooing. And I was like, it's cool. I'm a painter anyways. I'll stick with that. You can't do what I can do. And it just put this sour taste in my mouth for a minute where it was like, it's cool. You know what? Let's see you do anything with oil paints, anything at all. So where he was like, you won't succeed at this, there was part of me that just knew I was better of an artist. Like maybe I wasn't a tattooer, but I was definitely a better artist. And it was just like, okay, all right. So I kind of like just let that go. About 6 months later, my older brother, his name's Tad, he's a little bit of a kitchen wizard. He's been doing like at-home tattoos since he was like 15 or 16. He's worked on a lot of our cousins. He's worked on both of our other brothers, and he's not bad. Like, he's not bad at all. Like, I'm not making fun of him. I've actually tried to get him to like, if you get serious with this, you can be good. Like, if I can do it, you can do it. So he's not bad. It's just, it's not the thing he commits to. So anyways, he's like, I want you to do this tattoo for me. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, that ship has sailed. And he was like, no, I really want you to do it. And I was like, how about I'll draw it up and you have Speedy do it. And he's another tattooer who actually worked for me later on. But he's always just been like a friend of cousins and my brothers. And so like everybody knows Speedy in town. But I was like, I'll draw it, have Speedy do it. And he was like, no, I want you to do it. And he was like, I will set up my equipment for you and I'll walk you through it. Like, I know you can do it. I know you'll do a good job. And I was like, there was so much hesitation, but finally I was like, okay. So I show up and he's got everything set up and he's like showing me how to like, everything he showed me was wrong, first of all. So I'm not even going to tell you the things that he showed me for like, first of all, don't touch the contact screw. Don't do that. Don't touch the contact screw. That doesn't adjust the speed. That's not what that's for. So anyways, we I actually, against my better judgment, it was a banner of his then wife's name. But it was big. It was up his forearm. I made it look super traditional and like weathered, like a pirate scroll, and it healed up nice. We did it. We outlined it one day, and then we shaded it in like 2 weeks later, and it healed nice. It was a little on the light side, but within like the month of that tattoo healing, I had buddies of his calling me and messaging me, can you fix this? Can you finish this? Can you cover this? And a lot of times it was like, well, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I can do better than what you have. So,
Uh-huh.
so there were a lot of people very early on, based on that one tattoo that I did on my brother, that were like, can you fix this? Can you make this better? And so very early on, rather than having an apprenticeship, what I had was this pool of people that were totally trusting me just to take, some of the stuff they had was total train wrecks. Other things just weren't completed. Other things like somebody started it at a biker party and then got drunk, and how all those stories go. But there
Oh
were
yeah.
all of these opportunities for me to learn what these other tattooers had done wrong, wrap my head around it, and then make it better. So when you've got a tattoo that well, let's say that you've got a 2-star tattoo out of 10. If you've got a 2-star tattoo, that's not the greatest. But as a brand new tattooer, I could make that like 6 or a 7. Like,
Nice.
it's not going to be a showstopper, but it's going to be something you're proud of.
Way better.
So yeah, so early on, that was my apprenticeship, is just fixing and completing things. And then once you take a tattoo that somebody hates and you make it something that they like, then they're going to let you do whatever you want on them. So for me, I was very fortunate that things happened the way that they did, because I got to learn firsthand. Like, I got to see so many train wrecks early on, and I got to wrap my head around, like, this is why it's important to use good needles. This is why it's important to use quality ink. This is why it's important to make sure that everything is like what's consistent, making sure everything's consistent, like removing the variables that could make a tattoo heal bad. Or so I really learned how to tattoo by learning how not to tattoo. Like, don't do this, do this.
Yeah, I love the consistency is something that is so important with the process of learning how to become a professional. And maybe that is one of the things that needs to happen, is like, not only do you need to pull off an awesome tattoo that flows with the appropriate contrast on the body part that leaves it open for the rest of the bodysuit, but that you could do that consistently. Because it's one thing to be able to pull some shit off. It's another thing to be able to pull it off, on a bad day, or on a client who's wiggly, or whatever else it might be. Are there any tips, or, I guess, are there any insights or tips that you could advise either, or both clients and tattooers to be, a little bit more consistent in the right things? Because you also don't want to be like consistent in the wrong things.
Right. It depends. What direction do we want to run?
Well, okay, so let's stick with tattooers. So when there's tattooers, and I guess like trying to stay consistent inside of the variables of the skin medium are crazy.
Yeah. The type of needles you select makes all the difference in the world. Like using a flat versus a mag, like early in the I don't know, I started tattooing in 2008, so it was like 2008 and 2009 that I was experimenting the most with different needle configurations and things like that. But you could still get flat needles, and I learned that I hated those right off the bat, because if you had to handle them in such a careful way to not cut the skin. So I realized that some of the stuff that I saw, where I would see like gouges and things like that in tattoos, it's like, I bet they used a 7 flat instead of a 7 mag there. Like, I bet that's what this is from. So there are some times where like by looking at a poorly healed tattoo, I would like try and figure out like do the detective work backwards. Like
Hmm.
why did it heal like this? Was this the artist? Was this the tattooer? Or was this the collector? Um, what? So for me, I needed to find equipment that was consistent. I needed to find, like, for instance, even when I was early on and I wasn't in a shop yet, and I was still just like tattooing people like randomly when they would call me, they'd come to my house, I'd go to their house, I'd do parties, things like that. I had to have consistent equipment. I couldn't sit there with 3 or 4 people waiting to get tattooed and have to sit and fuddle and fidget with like I said, the contact screw. Like those are
Hmm.
things that you shouldn't have. So very early on, knew that I needed backups, and then I needed backups for my backups. So if one little thing went wrong, I could just set it aside, grab another, and continue on. That's one of the things that's really helpful for me for consistency. If you ever have a needle that just doesn't feel right, like it's just not putting the ink in the skin, just switch to another needle. Like a lot of us use loops to inspect things just to make
Hmm.
sure that they're crisp, but when in doubt, swap it out.
Yeah. I was
Keep
just
it
going to ask, do
consistent.
I loop every needle? We
Do
have
I?
yeah,
I don't.
yeah, yeah,
So there
yeah.
is this thing that I do though. So I've got super good eyesight, and I'm not saying that I can see the needle as good as I can with a loop, but I'll take the needles and I'll twist them just slightly. Like I'll take my needle cartridge and like as I'm inspecting it, I push the needles out and I take that needle and I just turn it in the light. And if there's no inconsistencies, like if the light bounces off the tip of all of those needles exactly the same, that's good for me. But if I do that and one of them, like the light bounces back a little bit different, or that reflection off the tip of the needle is just a little bit brighter or a little bit duller than the needles next to it, I'm just going to grab another needle.
So there is an inspection.
Yeah, there is an inspection.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
look, I don't use a loop, but I look at that
yeah.
light refracting off the very tippy tip of the needle.
This is one of my favorite tattoos that you've done. Like this is clearly pretty precise.
This was a lot of fun. So one of the things I like to do with my tattoos is I like you to feel like you're looking into a window or through a
Mm.
window, or like something is being transformed into another dimension or place.
You
So
nailed it with this one.
this is on Tori, and I've done a lot of large work on her, and she gives me a lot of freedom. So once we started talking about ideas for this tattoo, it just kind of came together. This is a picture that her mother took. I can't remember the whole exact story, but there's a lot of symbolism about her mom in this piece, and you wouldn't know it to look at it. But I love the way this one came out too. This one's a fun
Yeah.
one, even for me to look at after the fact, because it's got like a little bit of like biomechanical stuff with like the clasps and like the texture that I got to put into like the patina of the metal. And then the seashells are always kind of like bio-y, like eye candy for me. So I've got some on the outside of the window and some on the inside of the window. And that was a cool challenge to make it look like the ones in the foreground were in focus, but the ones on the outside of the window, I wanted them to look like they were just a little bit out of focus. Um, so there's a few little challenges in there that I kind of set for myself,
It's
but
still readable from far away.
I love exaggerating the sun and the skies, all the colors. I always exaggerate.
I mean, that looks like it, you know?
Still looks like a ship window all the
Yeah.
way out. Thank you. This was one session too. This was all in one day.
Uh-huh.
It was probably
And now is this
maybe 6 hours.
Oh, here's another memory. A lot of memories.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I really like doing it's a really neat way. Like this wasn't a memorial tattoo. This was just a tattoo about him and his son.
Uh-huh. That's awesome.
But I love using places to tell stories rather than like throwing some lettering on there. I'm not saying that lettering isn't cool. I'm just, for me as an artist right now, this is just what pulls my trigger, is telling a whole story. Like you can look at this and you can be like, oh, okay, it's a fishing dock. But for him to tell the story and like the places that we took these references from, and it becomes a whole story rather than
Mhm.
just,
Well, but it's so important even just to render it right. I recently saw another a tattoo that had some similar silhouettes, and they made some of it wasn't quite like this, but they made some of it up, and where they outlined maybe, I don't know, maybe some legs or something, and and it didn't look right, and it's like, you this is faithful to, kind of what it would look like.
Yeah, a lot of the painterly tricks, and I like using painterly because that's just like, if basically when I say that, if I was working with a paintbrush, this is how I would do it. But there's a lot of like tricks to the eye, and there's a lot of tricks there's like a lot of mental tricks when it comes to painting, like with like impressionistic style and intention. But one of the things that I love is like these little white checks and dashes. Could they be more meticulous and more detailed? And could I noodle them in there with a finer needle? Absolutely. But 10 years from now, these white checks and dashes are still going to be there against the skin. So for me, I kind of don't mind a bolder line. Even though I'm not necessarily using it in like the traditional style of line work. But I love just making it feel like I came in and just kissed it with a white paintbrush, and that white is standing out and standing on its own.
And it's the only white, right? Like, so I mean, maybe a little bit in there, but if like this is where
I think I only had it on the reflections of the dock, if I remember right. Maybe on the leaves a little bit. But I also use that to draw attention too.
Right. Yeah.
So just the same way you can use black to draw attention, or you can use complementary colors by picking and choosing where the white goes. It can draw attention in a different way.
Well, let's see. Oh wait, I'm going the other way. Boom, yeah, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, this is a more recent one. This was an all done in one day as well.
Cool. And how are the clients finding you? Are they finding you on online, or walking into Red Tree, or
so
clients of clients? I imagine a lot of referrals, of course.
This guy, his name's Brandon. He's collected from a lot of Red Tree artists. On his shoulder, that's the top of an Indian headdress, Native American headdress, by Rusty Dornheckler. Remember Rusty?
Oh, yeah.
He was at Red Tree for a while.
Yeah, the video guy too.
And he's got a Rich Cook arm sleeve, and then he's working on a second leg sleeve, I believe, by Rich Cook. So he wanted something. He always wanted something to do with his grandfather on his chest there. That was the idea, but he didn't know what. And then he saw some landscapes that I had done, and he was like, "Hey, could you do a camping scene for me?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we actually combined two photos, and this is actually the bank of the area that they used to camp at. And then I took another photo of their campsite and kind of combined them. So this is the actual bank, and then a photo of their actual camp set up one year.
Awesome.
So it's a really good example of like another storytelling piece without, it's about a grandfather and a child, or a father and a child,
Yeah, but it's fun because you do have, I mean, I imagine that everyone kind of makes it up, but I guess being a little bit older, I always kind of presume that he was the older guy. I also didn't have any connection with anybody, any parental types. But so immediately for you to tell a story about how he's the kid, right, and this is the grandfather, it's immediately turns the story around for me.
Yep,
it's awesome.
Yep, and this is another good example of like picking and choosing where things are kind of like soft and painterly and out of focus, and where things are like crisp, and like the silk on the tents. That's another good example of like picking and choosing which details are gonna like suck your eye into the next layer.
Oh shit!
That was me before I cut my hair off last week.
Oh, you did it. That's right.
Yeah. Gave her the chop. It's
good,
okay.
Good mug shots. Yeah. Okay. So this is some more. Is this on you?
This is my little sister. We've been working on this since she was about 16 or 17.
Oh, awesome.
Maybe 17. I don't think she was 16 when I did this. But this is actually, we talked about this for a long time before we started this project. But this is actually going to be a piece that goes all the way down to her foot. We're about to her knee
cool.
now, but we're telling the whole story of the never ending story, like storyline from her foot all the way up. We just started at
Nice.
the Great Valley scene, so we're working backwards.
Uh-huh.
But this is one of my favorite projects. It's been, we work on it when we get a chance, but this has been one of my favorites from the start. I stenciled all the characters for this one off of one of the movie posters. And then the background is probably one of my first handfuls of like free-handed landscapes.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, this is super early on, but there's so much stuff that like I still absolutely love.
Is it
The
nerve-wracking tattooing your family?
It absolutely is. Just because like I know how much I scrutinize my work. I know how one of the nice things about tattooing as opposed to painting is when I finish a tattoo, it's done and I have to disconnect from it because it's not mine. I'm not the one that's going to be wearing it. It's not going to grow into and fit on me. It's now somebody else's and it's part of somebody else's story.
Mm-hmm.
So with tattooing, whether you like it or not, you have to let go of your projects. With paintings, I hoard those. Like I almost never sell my paintings just because like they're ideas and then I can use them and show them to people to like spark new ideas.
Sure.
The same way that you would use Flash, I use my paintings for. Like I'll pull these out and be like, we could combine these trees with this weird shape and then put this bioform in front of it. Where if I don't have those paintings, I can't really explain what's in my head without spending several hours drawing it for a yes or no.
Sure.
Where was I going?
Ooh, I don't know.
We lost track.
I do have a
letting go of tattoos.
Right.
Yeah, it just tattooing forces me to let go of my artwork. But when I work on family members, when I work on close friends, I know I'm going to see that. And I know I feel like if you're close to me, your collection is a reflection on me as well. Even if I didn't do it, if I did do it, it's especially a reflection on me. So it's really hard. And like, as I grow as an artist, I want to always be proud of the things that I've done on the people that I'm closest with. I don't want to do something on like my mom and then 5 years later be like, why did you let me do that? Why?
Yeah.
Why did
Whenever I watch tattooers like tattoo their partners, I'm like, okay, you're going to be hopefully you'll be looking at that in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, got some comments here from on the Facebook, Damon Tesh. Hey, Damon, how are you? Always nice to catch up. He's very cannabis friendly. I was going to try to be subtle about it, but he's in Humboldt County, so
okay.
it's in their DNA. He says, really nice work, Fawn. Do you do saturation sessions? For instance, Dino Cook does up to 6 sessions saturating with colors after it looks finished.
Yeah, this is actually something that Todd Torres and he's one of our show correspondents on the Tattoo Collecting podcast. This is something that we've talked about one of my pieces. I shared a picture and it has like a blue herring in the foreground and then this real soft dreamscape around it. And Todd's question was, are you sure that's going to hold up over time? And I was like, well, so the background is only saturated once because I want it to get softer and hazier as this settles out. But I showed him the pieces in the foreground and the herring, and all of those parts were saturated twice, fully saturated twice, just so that they stay brilliant blue against the softer complementary background. That is something that is, I think, crucial to be considered in like the longevity of highly saturated, highly detailed tattoos. Like some things saturate it twice just so it's there. Like one of the things I always like to keep in mind is not how does it look right now, but how much pigment have I actually put into the skin. So when I hear that Dino's saturating and resaturating, it makes perfect sense to me because everything is like I've seen his work years down the road and it looks like it's a year old, and that explains it. Like if he's just saturating and the complementary colors are butted up to each other but saturated multiple times, then it's always going to look velvety and saturated, where sometimes one pass doesn't necessarily give you the longevity. And I think this is really true in bio work. And you'll see this a lot. Like with Guy's work, he'll go through and he'll rework things that look finished, but he's like, this is just for longevity's sake. And it may look even better, but at the end of the day, that's going to give that tattoo the smoothness, the saturation, and the boldness to stand the test of time. And we're humans. People that get big tattoos are usually adventurers and aren't afraid of a lot. So like when you get big tattoos, you're going to abuse it. It's going to see the sun. It's going to see, I would imagine, since Dino's an ocean explorer, he's probably working on a lot of ocean explorers, and you're just beating your skin up. So if you've saturated a lot of color in there, it's going to hold up better to UV and like just daily wear and tear and abrasions and cuts and scrapes. Like if there's more pigment in there, there's less ink travel that's going to go on. Your lymphatic system can absorb some of those colors over time, but if it's double and triple saturated, it's gonna be there. It's there.
Have you ever taken a Nick Baxter's seminar?
No, not yet. I would love to.
He's great. He's got he's got a very clear way to communicate. So he's like got full graphs about all the stuffs, and first, so no matter what, almost the first time you make a pass at something, like some of it's going to come out, and one of his sayings is, somebody was flipping, how do you get all your tattoos to look so awesome? It's rumored that he said something to the effect of like, the tattoo's not done until you say it's done, right? So like, and if a client really wants the tattoo to look like what it looks like in your portfolio, then they have to go through your process to do it. So Damon says, oh, cool. Thanks for answering. Also, he laughed at me snitching on him. Let's see. He said he met a guy with one of the iconic Dino works, one of the Batgirl piece. He said that he literally did it 6 times. And but yeah,
to the collector, it might feel that way, but not to the tattooer. Like it might feel like there are parts of my leg where Adam France did my leg sleeve, and there are some panels of that where he saturated it 3 and 4 times, and there are other panels like the inner panel, the inner upper thigh panel, that was just one pass, and he didn't have to go in and like resaturate. Why? Because that skin's a little bit softer. It literally never sees the sun. I don't have any freckles there that he had to like blend in or anything like that. So the different parts of the body, you're going to have to handle differently. The back, for instance, the skin is so thick on the back that you can just saturate and saturate and saturate. And the more you saturate, the more it's going to stand the test of time. But that skin is just so thick and can hold so much. But a
lot of it is kind of experience or technique. So I'm laughing now because I'm writing out Alex DePasse twice in a week. We were talking about tattooing the tops of the foot, and I had 3 experiences: the two of my feet, and then my top of one of my wife's foot. And I was like, you just have to do it multiple times. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Alex DePasse had to do it multiple times. Baxter just did it once. He did the top of my foot once. It still looks great like 15 years later. Alex's looks good, but he had to do it like 2 or 3 times. And then the top of my wife's foot peels off like a decal almost no matter what you do. And the third tattooer who was like, I'm going to make sure this sticks. He did the best, or maybe it was Muriel. I don't know. Somebody like the second and third person did the best they could possibly do, and it still peels off like a decal. It's horrifying because skins are just crazy.
Yep, it is funny. It is funny how different the texture of one person's skin versus another can be, and the heal factors. And there's a lot of like, there are certain ethnicities of people that are just incredibly easy to tattoo, and their skin just almost wants to be tattooed. Like Mediterranean people, anybody from that region? Oh, it's my favorite skin to tattoo. It's my favorite.
I thought you were going to say Southern Florida.
No, that's the opposite.
All
you
the Mickey
said you're
D's
Irish, but you're from Florida. Okay, you look like a leatherback sea turtle.
Oh.
Great. I am not going to get any ink into this leather at all.
Dope. Fun. Cool. Well, we barely even got into our topics, but we are running. It's 10 after 1. Let's let's do like one or two more good questions. How about let's talk about some of your most inspiring clients. Do you have any clients in particular that
Man. So I've
yeah,
got one client. Actually, he's coming in today. He's just like traveled the world, and he's high ranking in the military, or was. I don't know if he's still active or not for sure. It might be one of those like gray areas. But he's worked for NASA.
mm,
So I love hearing him just like talk about technology and things like that. But he's also like, he makes his own, he has a brewery, but
mm,
not only is he a hobbyist brewer, I'm not even really that much of a beer drinker, but he's kind of a botanist. So he grows his own hops, he's cross pollinating his own hops.
mm.
And he used to have a podcast about beer. So I just love talking to him because he's just like such an elevated nerd on every level. So I feel like every time I talk to him, I learn from him. Um,
Oh,
those are probably my favorite clients. Like
awesome.
every time we come together, we're both learning from things, or they just like blow my mind
Oh,
based on what they do. Another favorite
yeah.
client that I've had was a lineman. So he was always just sharing crazy, like, so I was down in this ravine and this is what I saw. And, after storms, when you're literally out in the mountains fixing power lines and doing things like that, like the views, we were talking about the view from a
Oh,
mountaintop
yeah.
earlier. Like that's
Sure.
his life. He's like dangling from like rappelling down from tall power lines and doing the things. And so just on like the other end of the spectrum, he's super fun to talk about or to talk with because he's got so many stories and they're all like nature oriented or like, and he's also had to like rescue other linemen that got stuck or
Oh,
injured,
shit.
or you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there it's just like the most extreme stories that it's like I knew those things were real. I knew that could happen. I knew those existed. I knew so
Yeah.
but I love learning from my
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Not often. Sometimes I find myself on a conversation with a guy and one of his influences or somebody
Mhm.
that he's working with, and all of a sudden, like again, they're talking about the subject matter, and then go, okay, I've talked with Guy a lot over the last set of years, and all of a sudden he's like, well, he knows the vernacular, he knows deep thoughts behind it, he's keeping up, and I'm like, what's going on? And Guy's like, well, I have this client. I don't ask that, but like, I'm wondering what the hell's going on. How does Guy know about this? I've never heard him talk about it before. And then Guy let it on. He's like, well, I have a client and this is how I find out. And it really is just amazing that tattooers get to experience so many different people's stories. And,
Mhm.
and none of them are boring, right? By the time you get into tattooing, you're not like, I mean, I guess people are getting more and more normal, but you're really not that normal.
It's one of the funny questions that everybody always seems to ask is, have you worked on anybody famous? It's like, I mean, I've worked on some like athletes and stuff, but like you might not know them. Like I didn't even realize they were athletes till like the third time I worked on them. So it's
Yeah.
kind of funny when like I work on somebody that somebody else might be starstruck over, and it doesn't even like dawn on me like, oh, you played in the Super Bowl last year. I didn't realize that was you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I knew your
Yeah.
homies had a friend that
Yeah.
played football, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was you.
Nice.
So that's
I
always cool.
Sure. No, it's an amazing intersection between tattoos and celebrity, and then there are now celebrity tattooers inside of the whole craziness. But and anyways, it's fun for me to watch like more and more people experience the awesome power of tattoos and the positive effects that I could have on their lives. And I try not to ever really be disparaging. It's like when people are like, it's becoming mainstream. I'm like, well, getting tattooed just to be unmainstream isn't really all that cool either. Is it? I mean, it's like it's
I
the
love
same
hearing
if it,
people's motivations. We
yeah,
all have totally different motivations for collecting tattoos and the
well,
way that we collect tattoos. Like I know what my motivations are, but they're going to be totally different than the next person's. but
Sure.
I don't know.
No, it's fun.
It's just the epitome of personal. You know what I mean? So everybody's motivation is going to be different. And you got those people that are like just self-conscious and they're like, I'm getting tattooed so I look cool.
Right.
All right.
Uh,
Well, would you like to tell a good story at the same time?
Sure, sure. And again, for me, it's like that's kind of like when some of the old school. Well, I don't know if it's the old schools, but when people make kind of make fun of that, but their tattoo made them tough. It's like, wait, like I guess the thing is using tattoos to like mark yourself as antisocial is the same mentality as marking yourself with tattoos to be social, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, it's like tattoos really, at least in my opinion, or at least in my experience, the sweet spot is around like using the tattoos to like either encourage a transformation, to amplify a transformation, or maybe even to be the first lure of a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's
One of
really
my favorite
about.
things about collecting tattoos, and this is why, honestly, this is probably why I'm so passionate and so committed to eventually having a full body suit, is once I started getting large work, there's a lot of spiritual transformation that happens that I did not expect. I didn't expect it. I didn't know, like, I thought, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to endure this. I'm going to be tougher when I walk away. Like all those things that you hear. But there's a lot more spirit building and soul repairing that goes on through the tattooing process. And it's not just the pain. Sometimes it's actually like, you're sitting there and tolerating another person being in your space. You're sitting there and trusting this person that you're tolerating being in your space. And you're not only trusting them, you're excited about it. There's a lot of like, you have to wait. There's a lot of anticipation, but you've got to wait. You've got to be patient. But when it happens, you've got to be strong and you've got to sit through it and you've got to like work with your tattooer and there's just all of these like character building and soul transforming things that happen. Like, I feel like through heavily collecting my tattoos over the past, like, let's say 6 years, I feel like I have grown. Like, I don't know. There are a lot of conversations that my mom and I have where there's just like spiritual wisdom that like I didn't have a few years ago. There's, I can talk with my own mother and like people that I look up to and respect, and I can talk to them about patience, and I can talk to them about like, that's just the way it is. And you just got to deal with it. And the best way to deal with it is gracefully. There are a lot of lessons like that where like, there are a lot of experiences that you want to like pout and stamp your feet about and hem haw and whatever. And once you've been tattooed heavily, it allows you, if you can go through that gracefully, if you can go through getting beat up voluntarily, if you can go through that gracefully and walk away with your head up, there's a lot more that you can go through gracefully and walk through and keep your head up and be poised and be rational. And, you can be emotional, but still be rational. And a lot of those, before collecting tattoos heavily, I couldn't have been both emotional and rational at the same time. It would have been one or the other. But through forcing myself to sit through bad experiences, it's allowed me to both deal with bad things, want to run away, but rationally know that the best way to deal with this is just suck it up and deal with it. Those
Yeah,
are the magic lessons that I couldn't have learned any other way.
yeah. I have a seminar on lessons tattooing has taught me about life that I use, in business, and
Mm-hmm.
it feels like that is almost, well, it seems like that's going to be the perfect close to this conversation, but it'll also be like the perfect opening for the next one. Unfortunately, we got to the I think that those lessons, that part of the magic of tattooing, is why probably we're both still here. It's definitely why I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique. There's other awesome things about the world and about life and about humanity, but to be able to tap into a spot where there's like this, there's artists that are involved with the transformation of a human life over the longest amount of time that is known to us, which is our lifetime. Might
Hmm.
be a couple more decades, or and again, part of tattooing is memorial tattoos and memorializing people and whatnot. It's death has got a death has staked out its claim in the tattoo territory in a way that hasn't in many other professions. But point is, that was awesome. And I'm excited to clip that out. And I think that we should start there, on the next conversation, something to the effect of like, let's talk about, one or two of the lessons that tattooing has taught us, so, potentially other people could learn it without going through the troubles and the cover-ups and the lasering. You didn't have to go through any cover-ups and lasering.
One of the things that I preach to everybody is it's not a race. Be patient. Early on in my tattoo career, I took a lot of flack for not having a lot of tattoos, but I had both of my ribs done pretty early, and they were big, multi-session pieces. Got my feet done early. I mean, I kind of jump into the gluttonous bad spots first.
Ribs are
But
insane.
I really took a lot. I took a lot. There was a tattooer that I worked with that he even went as far to say that I had no business tattooing people because I wasn't heavily tattooed. It's like, man, I've got 30 hours on each side of my ribs. If 60 hours of tattoo time doesn't compare to your 4.5 hours of all that garbage up and down your arms, like, I want my work to be good, and I want to inspire people to know that they can have good work and they can have collections that they're proud of. And like, you can get tattooed for you. You don't have to get tattooed to show it off to other people. To like, tattoos don't have to be that like in your face cool factor or whatever those motivations are. Tattoos can be very personal, and you can spend a lot of time getting a tattoo that nobody but you and your significant other will ever see. And that's fine. That's just as important. For me, that makes it important to get a good quality photo so I can share it with people. But that's the magic of tattooing. It's so personal. It's not a piece of art that's intended to hang on by the world. It can be personal. But patience is something be patient with your tattoos. Don't go get a tattoo because you feel like getting a tattoo. I mean, but like, think about it. One of the things that I like to talk to people about, not so much like grown people, but like younger people in their early 20s. Is this something you want to talk to your grandkids about? Like, I want to talk about it like that. When we're at our consultation and we're talking about this funny thing that would be hilarious to get right now, and you're going to get free drinks at the bar because you got this, like, are you going to be proud to talk to your grandkids about this and to see people like, oh, this is forever.
Wow.
Like, I want you to be proud forever of my work. And that's why it's not a race. Like, I've got some clients that are like, I want to get in as soon as possible. Like,
sorry,
Fawn,
real quick. Could you keep riffing on this for like 3 minutes? Because I need to catch up with my dog real quick.
Okay. About patience collecting?
Yeah, patience is such an important lesson. Part of patience too is, and as you know this, it's like waiting, but then waiting for the right moment to move quickly, right? So patience isn't about moving slowly. It's about being patient. But in any event, I got a boogie. I'll be right back.
Yep. Yeah, back to the patience thing. On the opposite end of the spectrum, like I always want people to be patient and not rush into tattoos. I want you to love your collection for the rest of your life. But at the same time, there is like this element of sometimes you've got to patiently wait for the opportunity to even present itself. For instance, Guy did my armpits, and it was one of those, like, for years, I wanted Guy to do that area of my torso just to like tie and connect everything. I had Russ's work, I had Ty and Adam's work, and Guy Aitchison has worked with all three of those artists. So I just felt like I always wanted to collect something from him. But those areas in particular, I thought he was just going to be the perfect fit, not to be like a gap filler, but actually like tie everything together. And I'm super proud of those tattoos. But I had to have faith that the opportunity would present itself. That's the thing. I had to have faith that the opportunity would present itself. And then I had to be patient until it did. As it turns out, Guy had somebody cancel, and it was like a Wednesday or Thursday, and it was like a Friday or Saturday appointment that had canceled. So he made a post that he had a spot this weekend. I happened to have a handful of money sitting there, and I hit him up. Would I have necessarily gotten the same response if I had sent him like messages over the years while he was busy? Maybe not, because it's really hard to like get to every email. But at that moment, it made it really easy to be like, hey, I'm Fawn. Here's who I've been worked on by. I've always wanted you to fill these spots for me, not as a gap filler. I had the other artists leave these areas open for you. So it was incredibly flattering when Guy replied with, I'm familiar with your collection. That made me feel so good. It was like, oh my God, Guy Aitchison knows my name. But if it wouldn't have been for just like patiently waiting and having faith to know that that opportunity would present itself, I might have like not had the space there, you know. And the other thing is like, you know, I've kept my arms open because I do have ideas. I do have, you know, the artist I'd love to do my left arm is in Russia.
Who's that?
Samarina Nika.
Oh, I get to look him up. Her up.
Yeah, her stuff's so good.
Her up. Yeah, cool.
But I haven't gotten anything on this arm at all. Just patiently waiting for the opportunity to present itself. Like, have I talked to her? No, but I know with the way the tattoo world works, I know we're going to cross paths, maybe not in person, but like we're going to cross paths and the timing's going to be right. And that's how it worked out with Guy. Like in reality, did I ever imagine I would ever actually be able to get his attention to be worked on by him? No, but all I had to do was reach out. Like when he made the post that he had an availability, there was my chance. I happened to have the money. I happened to, I think I had like a homie scheduled that weekend. So it was a really easy reschedule. But if I would have just like rushed into any of my projects, I might not have had the real estate. And that's why it's important. That's why it's not a rush. It's not a race, because we all do only have one body and we do only have so much real estate.
Yeah.
So that's where the patience is so important. I'm in my mid 30s right now, and I like look at my body and it's like, man, I'm halfway easily.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my back, my full chest, my armpits. So the only part of my torso that's not tattooed is literally my belly. Oof. I've got a full leg.
And the older you get, the more it hurts too. It's like, it's the only time where I'm like, you know, I really do encourage patience as much as possible, but it hurts more. And it really does. But yeah. What are you going to do?
The technology and the prenums are getting a little bit better. The back team helps. There are aids that weren't there a few years ago.
And you need them more the older you get. So Michelle Wortman says hi, Fawn, from the chat room. So she's been tuning in for a little
Michelle.
bit. Damon says pain equals transformation. Well, in any culture around the world, and hopefully that's pain is a good transformation, right?
When I was a kid, I was one of those kids that was always like rolling around in leaf piles and like climbing trees and rolling down hills. And like, I'd come back in the house and I would have like sticks and leaves in my hair, and it'd be like matted mess. When my mom would be brushing my hair, she'd be like, Fawn Louise. And I'd be complaining and squirming and trying to get away. And she'd say, pain is beauty over and over. Pain is beauty. So cut to, what do I do to myself? I like, back to my mom, I like blaming her for this. Like when she's like, I don't know why you've done this to yourself. It's like, pain is beauty, Mom. Pain is beauty.
Nice. Our family motto that fits in is, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough.
Yep.
Yeah. But awesome. Well, this has been great. And again, I think that, like I said, I feel like we've got like 2 or 3 hours more conversations about all of the different lessons that tattooing teaches us, because it's so intense that it seems like a lot of life's lessons we learn really quickly, really hard. And although you can actually fix the mistakes, they are difficult to do, and you need to be very conscious of it. But like I said, we have to tease everybody for the next one. They could always catch you at on the Tattoo Collecting podcast.
Yep.
And
Thursdays at noon.
Thursdays at noon. And is this actually coming up on 1 year? Or not this week, but next week? Is episode 52 a year? Did you skip any weeks?
I think we skipped Christmas. I could
Okay.
look and see when we first.
Christmas.
Yeah, I
Like,
think we skipped Christmas week.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty steady Eddie. It's really gotten to the point where like I enjoy the routine of Thursdays. There's a place close to where Jordan and I live very close to one another, but there's a little breakfast place real close to both of us. And we've gotten the routine of like we go live at noon, but we usually get together at 10. We have our coffee, we have a light breakfast, and then we go back and start like setting up and smoking. So it's kind of turned into like, it's our day dedicated to this project, but it's also like a day to like stretch away from all the other creative stuff that we do, because it's so like our conversation is very laid back. We talk about anything and everything. We try to loop back to tattooing a lot. But it's very technology and it's very order of operations. So for me, as frustrating as it is, and as much as it is like me, I feel like I'm swimming upstream, learning things backwards a lot with technology. It's nice to like stretch that other side of my brain, because like when I do play in like the whimsical daydream all day in and day out, it's really nice to like put that methodical cap on and the problem solver, because like all the tool I know all the tools that I have are going to work together, but what is in the wrong place and where,
because it doesn't leave much room. It leaves room for creativity, but not in like there's parts of it. There's no creativity. You need to connect the cables in the right way. You need to make sure that the audio is not looping around into itself. Where's it coming from? Into itself.
And then
it's amazing.
You'll have the backup device in the corner, and that's the one causing all the problems. It's like, we didn't turn the sound off the backup camera.
I don't know how many times I've been like, everything is all set up and perfect, and then in that 10 minutes before I open up like a new window, and then I surf for a minute, and then I'm like, then I'll surf over to like YouTube or something, and then I'll be like, oh shit, it's time to start the show. So then I start the show, and I just forgot that I have one window that's got YouTube playing. Or maybe it doesn't have it playing, right? Maybe it's like the website that has the viewer that's going to auto start, but it hasn't auto started because it hasn't started. So then you start, and now all of a sudden there's like the one extra window that I just fired up because I was impatient. All of a sudden it is now talking to me. I'm like, wait, does anybody else hear the echo? And everyone's like, I don't hear any echo. And I'm like, oh no, I'm the only one that hears the echo. Oh no, I'm the only one that hears the echo. Well, if I keep going, but if it's not me, then I could just keep going. And as long as I could do it, then I could get through the intro. I could get through the intro with the echo. Anyways.
I feel like we've gotten, at least for our show, I feel like we've gotten a good system of like texting each other. Like, you guys got the echo? Is it me? Is it you?
Awesome.
So
nice.
we're getting a little bit more. I think with every episode we're getting a little bit more fluid.
That's the way it works, and the fact that you guys have like 50 now is pretty crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. Ben is real. I think Ben's really going to start becoming a big part of the show. He's going to start helping me out with a lot of our like fake commercials and like additional material. He's also been traveling to conventions and stuff, so he's really like. And I don't know if you knew Ben before he was on the show, but for Hell City, he's always the camera guy. So he's always sitting there at the end of the stage, like zooming in up close on the tattoos for all the projections. So like he knows a lot. He knows a lot.
He's been watching tattoos. Like, I mean, the camera person for Tattoo of the Day at Hell City gets to look at some of the best tattoos that exist.
Amazing. Yes. Yep. So that's not the only way Ben got in the loop, but like, that's why I feel like his opinions are so credible, because he's seen just the cream of the crop work for so many years. Like when you're the guy showing the whole crowd what is amazing, you get to learn a lot. You really, like, as a collector or a tattooer, you have the privilege to really learn a lot and see like we could talk about what you see at Hell City for a whole nother
It's
3
out of
hours.
control. And when I've had the pleasure of doing the camera for the tattoo of the day, sometimes people bring me over for Tattoo Now to do like the videos and some of that stuff. It's the best spot that exists. I mean, judging is even better because you don't have to move the camera slow.
That's one of the things that
look,
I think mine and Ben's goal is to start hitting conventions, and like a lot of conventions don't even necessarily have like that camera person projecting everything.
Most don't.
In those situations, it could be us. We could be the tattoo collecting podcast. We can say log on to Reinventing, and you'll see like there might not be screens projecting it, but it can be me and Ben filming and talking about what's going on.
I mean, if a stage doesn't have a screen, then you got to run away from that convention. I mean, well, actually, but not necessarily. To your point, though, we could also just put it right up on a screen in a booth. And we actually will start having Reinventing booths in some of these shows and stuff, too. Oh, man, we just have to be patient just a little longer.
We're getting there. We've got a lot of ideas. Jordan's going through such a crazy period of growth right now. He's doing a lot on his own, and his projects are really demanding. So I think Jordan's definitely going to stay a co-host, but I think Ben and I are going to kind of take the reins on the like additional footage and additional material. And I think that's really going to take our show to the next level and make it feel like it's actually like a produced show where, you know, we've got like these little. One of my goals with the show is like, I really like the idea of accidental learning. Like you're just listening to a bunch of stoners talk, but if you're actually learning about bedside manner, and you're actually learning how to reach out to people, and you're learning about the manners and etiquette in the community and why these things are important, it's all accidental learning. And I think people are more inclined to like retain things that they pick up by accident.
100%. I mean, that bit that you gave at the top of the hour about the patients and some of those lessons is gold. Some of my favorite, well, I haven't necessarily gone to the rewatching, but like in the drunk critiques, like every once in a while, it's like an hour 3 to 5. I'm like, this is amazing. You'll never get this unless you're drunk at a convention after hours. This is the gold. This is the stuff. Let's see. So what do we have here? Okay, so actually a couple questions in here. I got a little bit more time. If you do,
I'm free till like 5. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gotta. I'm inside. I have to hit my safety meetings outdoors, but I could switch phones.
2 coffees because I wasn't sure how long we were gonna go.
Nice, awesome. Usually we do like an hour and a half.
Switch cups. That's why they're both half empty. So I'm switching back and forth the whole time.
Nice. Okay, so let's see here. So Chris Doriazio is in. I hope I pronounced that right. He's in the Tattoo Now YouTube channel. Looks like. He's been in for a while. Started off with saying it's a thing, and that's why we shouldn't judge. Presumably, we're talking about judging of tattoos, and even if somebody's getting faith upside down on their wrist, there always is a level of respect that you should give it because of what the client is going through. That's the extreme example I usually give. Let's see. So he also says, the more I tattoo myself, the more that I secretly believe that tattoos should be something that may be best traded between people or done to oneself. I don't know why I keep thinking about that. It's fun because I always think when people are tattooing themselves that they could usually learn more to your experience. You could learn more by having master tattooers tattoo you, and also about the experience. But on the other hand, if you get tattooed by an asshole, then
that's one of the things that's really important to consider as a tattooer is what kind of energy are you giving your clients? Like I'm an incredibly open smoker. So like at my consultations with clients, I usually let them know that like, so when we take breaks, I'm going to sneak outside and smoke some weed. And like, that's what I do. But I like to be open and honest with that.
That's great.
From the start. That way I'm not sneaking. I don't want to lie to my clients. I don't want to disrespect them and like, I was checking the skunks.
No, that's not because that might make them uncomfortable. In any seated down. Yeah, I
really like I like chilling with my clients before our session. Like I like smoking with them, whether they smoke or whether they don't smoke, they're always invited. but even if they don't smoke, I encourage them to come with me, because you're going to get me like deflating, and you're going to get me like
Talking
getting in
about it,
sync
thinking
with
about
you.
it, and
Yeah,
sure,
like as I'm smoking, I'm going to be like looking at you, and I'm going to be looking at your body part that I'm getting ready to tattoo, and I'm going to be daydreaming, and I'm going to be like asking all of the, like, just through casual conversation, it helps us to get on the same wavelength. Um, and it
sure,
helps me to kind of like shed all of my energy from like the chores I was running around doing before work, bills I was paying, calls I had to make. Like, it's letting me shed all of that. That way I'm giving my client all of my energy. They're getting all of my energy, like creative, emotional. And I like that.
Mm,
I like my clients to know that like they're they're getting undivided attention and energy from me. And I like knowing that like that energy is good, and that energy is like, I don't know, there, I guess what I'm saying is there is a lot in that exchange between the tattooer and collector, and that's what's special. And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's such a sacred, special thing, and I like to include my clients in the brainstorm. um
sure.
it's just really nice to be on the same spiritual level, because we are trading more than just money and art. We're trading a lot of spiritual energy as well. So I just really want that energy that's attached to the tattoo, whether it has anything to do with the tattoo or not. I want that to be positive, and I don't know, it's just really important to me that like good energy is going into my projects all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell when. I mean, obviously, we all know the stories. Not that heavy metal doesn't have its place, or might not even have its place in tattooing, but people walking in, they're getting blasted at with like antagonistic energies, and
Mm-hmm.
and again, fine. There might be there is a place for that, but that's definitely not the experience that everyone's looking to memorialize for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a line. Like sometimes clients do need to be like pushed a little bit. And for instance, yesterday Keith Miller works in the room right next to me, and we've got a window that like connects us so we can hear one another talk. And his client was really struggling. He was doing the first session of like a shoulder to shoulder chest piece all the way down to like
Mm.
the solar plexus. And his client was just struggling, and he was taking like several breaks. So once in my room, once we caught on to what was going on, and my client that I was working on at the time, he was heavily tattooed. We just kind of started poking fun a little bit. We weren't hateful or anything, but it was just like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Uh-huh.
Look at some of those, like, you got to sit through it, bro. You got to buckle down. Like, if I can do it, you can do it. That's
You know,
that's the most poking fun I do, because I want it to stay positive. But like sometimes people need that reminder, like, you're not the only one. And yes, this sucks, but like you got to get
yeah,
through it. And the only way to get through it is to get through it. And if I can do
yeah.
it, you can do it.
I hear rumors. I'm sure it's true that Adrian Lee, his shops always they have back piece day. So one day a month, they all make it a point to book back pieces,
So
and
there's like that camaraderie between the collectors.
exactly. And then there's the
Hmm.
people that are on the tail end of almost getting it done, and the people that are on in the very beginning, they're like all gung ho, but then like 4 sessions in, they're like, I'm not even sure I really want to finish this. Does it look done? It looks kind of done. The
It
line
looks
work's done. The
done-ish.
shading's done. It looks done.
The
I
black
feel
is
like my
good.
ribs. My ribs are done. I got, it's been 10 years since I haven't gotten the final session done on it. But point being is, that camaraderie and watching different people in different parts or different stages of the process help, get you along with it. Obviously, Adrian and that whole crew is pioneers and/or real great inspirations on how to attract collectors
Hmm.
that can get through that whole process.
Adrian Lee's one that I would love to know him personally. I haven't met Adrian yet, but the thing the things that I've heard that he does, I just feel like I could learn so much from him. And
Yeah,
I think they're like, if the collab opportunity ever presented itself, I think there's a lot of really cool things that he and I have in common, like with the way we play with color, and like the juxtaposition of like flat and colorful and detailed. And but he's somebody that I look up to a lot. And one of the things that I really admire, and I've kind of started doing this in my own way, but I've heard that one of the things that they do is at his studio is when they have their consultation, they sit down with like a outline of the human form, and they're like, okay, what are you comfortable getting tattooed? And I think that's a brilliant way to start the consultation. Because if you know how much of a person's body they want to cover, then you can start the arrangement there rather than starting with a piece and then working out. You can look at the whole body and consider balance and layout of, not maybe just the tattoo you're working on, but like the overall aesthetic of the whole body.
Yeah.
And that's something that is really, if early on in my career that it would have dawned on me that I could coach people into being better collectors, I would have been a totally different tattooer, because like my first 3 or 4 or 5 years, it was like, if you want it, I'll do it. And then I caught myself saying things like, I mean, I'll do it for you, but I'm not going to post a picture of it. And then I'd catch myself
wait a minute,
saying things like, I mean, I'll do it for you, but I wouldn't be proud to wear it. And then one day it just occurred to me, like, if I wouldn't be proud to wear it, I shouldn't be doing it. Sure. And once that connection happened for me, I feel like my consultations totally changed. I feel like the way I tattooed totally changed, because if I wouldn't wear it, if I wouldn't be proud to wear it, I shouldn't put my name on it. So sure. That's where those are the people. Let your idea develop a little more. Like, let's just let that ripen. Like, think about that. Yeah. I'm not saying no, but let's let that idea ripen. Sometimes they come back with a totally different idea that's better, or they come back with like something that I would be proud of. Maybe not subject matter that I would wear, but something like in the way we're doing it, I would be proud of, and I would be proud to put my name on it. Sure. But that was a huge change. And if I would have known that, like, I could consult, like, let's talk about your whole body. Like, I know I'm only going to do your shoulder and half sleeve. That's all we're talking about right now. But like, what all do you want to do? What is this going to potentially complement later on? What is it eventually going to tie into later on? And so there are times where, like, there are tattoos of mine where, like, for instance, if somebody, let's run with a half sleeve, if somebody's doing a half sleeve, a lot of times, more often than not, it ends up growing into a full sleeve.
So it always should. If you're doing your job as a tattooer, right, then it will.
Yeah, when I have
like, the only reason why a half sleeve isn't a full sleeve is if you fuck it up.
When I have that conversation now with people, there are elements where, like, if this was only going to be this tattoo, I would complete the bottom like this, or I would add this here. But since I know you're going to add something 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this area is where your next artist or me or whoever can tie into and connect into. Like, I leave deliberate areas to make it really easy to tie in and connect one story to the next. So that's something where, like, 3 and 4 and 5 years in, I wouldn't have even thought to be like, whoa, what are your other tattoos going to look like? That early on, it was like, okay, let me see what you have. Okay, I want to give you the best tattoo you have. Contest on, let's go. Where now I think of it like, I want to give you the best tattoo I can give you. Yes, I want to give you the best tattoo on your body, but I also want this tattoo to be able to grow into other things, whether it's me or another artist. I don't want to back anybody into a corner. I want to leave you more options than obstacles.
Yeah, let's plan a tattoo collecting podcast / reinventing / tattoo now activity where we map out, like, mostly positive on negative shapes of bodysuits for people, but like to your point, like, people should be able to plan in advance, and they're not going to unless we show them how, their bodysuits, so that, like, here's the places where you could play around with, whatever kanji and simple things. Here are places where you should be doing some black and gray, and here, but leaving space for either fucking crazy color.
I like talking about different body types too. I had a client a few months ago. She's a bigger girl, but I mean, whatever.
More space.
Yeah, she was like, I'd love to have a back piece like yours, but I would never show it off. And I was like, I mean, to be fair, if you had a back piece like mine, you'd show it off and you wouldn't even care about anything else.
100%.
And she was like, I don't know, I've got this belly and everything. I was like, girl, don't take this the wrong way. But if I was built like you at this point in my tattoo collecting career, I would be like, more real estate. Let's get this. And she was like,
Yeah,
huh, I never thought about it like that. I was like, are you more comfortable with your leg tattoos now? Like, do you wear shorts? Do you wear dresses? She's like, all the time. I was like, I bet if you tattooed your torso, you wouldn't even be self-conscious whatsoever about being a bigger girl. You'd own it. You'd feel
sure.
comfortable in your skin because you've transformed it into what you want it to be. And she's like, I never thought of it like that.
And people flip the
So
fuck out. They're like, look at
yeah,
that.
yeah. The next time I saw
Oh.
her, I showed her there's this girl that she's a pretty heavy collector. I believe her Instagram handle is Tattooed Juliet. Do you know who I'm
Oh
talking
yeah, I
about?
know her. Yeah, she's been collecting for a
I
long
was
time.
showing
Not
my
that long,
client
but yeah.
pictures of her collection, and she was like, you just changed my world. Just changed my world.
Oh, it's so great to hear.
So now
Awesome.
she's not considering only her arms and legs, but she's like brainstorming about bigger pieces where she might not have. And to tell her, like, you know, the things that I used to be self-conscious about, I'm not even self-conscious about, because I know people are looking at my tattoo work and they're looking at my artwork. They're not scrutinizing every little scar or stretch mark or dimple. They're impressed by this overall thing that I'm transforming myself
Sure.
into. Like, whether they like it, dislike it, agree, disagree, there's so much artwork going on. They're not scrutinizing the little things that I used to be self-conscious about.
Sure. Definitely
So
tell Juliet or text Juliet or DM her or something. Let her know that she's part of other people's processes.
absolutely. I love
You
using
know?
her as an example. Like,
Oh yeah.
I've been following her collection like since before I was even like
Yeah.
heavily tattooed.
I think
And
she got tattooed at Paradise, like maybe even the first couple of years.
that might be, I mean, it was either early Hell City or Paradise.
Yeah, she's at Hell
There were
City
so
too all
many
the time.
people at Paradise that
Yeah.
I felt like Paradise was just like a whole nother like Hell City in a different place. It was so much of the same circuit in a
It
good
was,
way.
yeah. Oh yeah,
In a
absolutely. I
great
mean,
way.
Derb, like we couldn't have done the first couple of years without Derb. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, he literally drove out with all the shit to help set up. You
Yeah,
know.
I only went to the Keystone event, so
Oh, okay, yeah.
that's the one I'm talking about. And at that
Yep.
time, like I knew who Derb was, but I didn't realize that he was helping with the Paradise events and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool how some things and some events have really come full circle for me. Where it's like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
you
these
know,
events are this and that and the other, and then you see that it's like the same creative minds and um
tapping
the
into the
same
same similar
intentions.
energies. Yeah, exactly. I
Yes.
remember
Yep.
I tried to get him Derb to do the Hell City out here in New England. And I was like, Derb, you got to come out to New England. Come on. And he was like, you know, I don't know what was going on. Something else was going on. And then all of a sudden, I found the right venue or something. I was like, no, Derb, really, you should do a Hell City out here. And he's like, look, I'm doing a show out in Arizona. Yeah, I'm not coming out to New England. And I think maybe Joey Cap was trying to get him to come out here too or whatever. Like
Mhm.
we really needed a New England show. And then Derb said, but I'll help you run a show. And I was like, what the fuck did he just, what? Oh no, oh no. I think that means that I have to run a show. Like, because I'm sure that he doesn't say that to very many people. But
Right.
if he said that, then I definitely should be saying, yes, I will accept your help to do this.
Yep.
Because I love his show. Is, you know, every single detail is covered.
Yeah.
And it took a while. Like the first venue didn't sit right. And it took another 6 months before I was doing some sleigh riding or mountain sleds with my daughter at Jiminy Peak, and they kept telling me the people at the show at the venue it's like an old ski resort with a bunch of like I said, it's like a family friendly ski resort. There might have been 10 at the time, but everyone was like, you know, we had a biker convention here last weekend. And I'm like, that's cool. I love motorcycles too. I'm not, you know, like, I mean, I like bikers. I like some bikers. I have as many bikers as I like tattooers. Like, there's a lot of different. That means a lot. There's a whole wide variety of bikers. And after
A
like
biker convention compared to like a Paradise event or Hell City are not even in the same
exactly.
realm.
And but after like 4 or 5 people telling me this, I was like, well, how many bikers are here? And they're like 1,000. I'm like, well, we could put 1,000 tattoo collectors here, and it's like beautiful. It's a mountain resort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, you know, Derb, I think I found a spot. And he came out, and then Carson from Numa, he came up. I think Joey Cap came up, and we all looked at him like, what the fuck? This is a ski resort in the middle of nowhere. I didn't see a house for 20 minutes before I got here. And I'm like, I know, exactly. Let's fuck it. Let's do it. So But yeah, without Derb came out with the MC. Fuck, I can't believe I'm brain farting his name, but um, who the
Uh,
fuck is the MC?
Jeff, was it Jeff Solon?
Jeff Solon. Yeah. Solon came out, and they definitely gave us the launch. Those first 2 years, having Derb make sure that we don't fall off a cliff was great. And again, we were bringing something new, that newish to the table, or something unique to the table, and they're very complimentary, but not competitive. We also did a show with Derb out in Venice, the Venetian Tattoo Gathering.
Yeah. I tell Derb all the time, like I make it very known. I didn't have an apprenticeship starting out tattooing. So my time working with Derb, I'm kind of treating as, it's not necessarily an apprenticeship on how to tattoo, but I'm able to like learn so many things from just like standing next to him, and all the opportunities, like being attached to True Tubes and being attached to Red Tree. I didn't have the privilege to learn from somebody helpful in the beginning, but now I feel like I'm surrounded by the best team to learn like the next level of my career. As an artist, I'm growing left and right, but like all the things that I'm able to learn from Derb, like just talking product design with him, talking about conventions with him, just talking about dealing with different artists and personality types over the years, talking about successful and unsuccessful things to do, like as far as how to set up studios. Um, it's so much knowledge that I am blessed enough to be around. And he's so talented, and he's talented, he's intelligent, but one of his strongest things is having talented, intelligent people around him. And I see how good he is at not only delegating, but selecting the right person to delegate the right projects and tasks to. We all have as long of a leash as we want. All the artists, we have as long of a leash as we want to do whatever we want. But at the same time, we're literally 1 inch away from him with questions, or if we want to meet somebody or we want to get tattooed by somebody, or Derb is an endless Rolodex of fantastic connections. And there are a lot of things that I missed out on early in my career that I had to swim upstream and find information through the back doors and like trial and error. But now in this next part of my career, I have like one of the best in the industry to just listen and watch. And, I love working the True Tube events, because like when we go to other conventions and we're just selling supplies and talking about products. First of all, I've used the steel tip disposable tubes early on in my career. I went from like meh line work to like much better line work just by switching to better tubes.
Yeah.
And then when he came out with the biodegradable foam grip covers, all of a sudden all the calluses on my hands were gone, and my index and middle finger weren't numb all day long anymore. And like where my cuticles used to clip, like crack and bleed from where my tube would rest all day long tattooing, that all of a sudden was no longer a problem. So like just based on those first two products, before I even knew Derb personally, like I was already sold, and I was already telling other tattooers, like, spend $1 more a tattoo to save your hands. Like, sure. It's that easy.
It's fun to, we've been interviewing a lot of the traditional guys too, through Tony Urbanic and like Hunter, and they're all like, because they're all traditional, like they're traditional guys, and they love the steel tip True Tubes.
The ink flow is the best. Like, and like I keep saying, this is before I even knew Derb personally. Right. This is like the ink flow is just the best. And I mean, I could get into like how the steel is polished on the inside. So like that meniscus like just gradually drops down nice and slow, no hesitation. If you're a fine line artist, or you're a traditional artist that depends on crispy, flawless lines, you need to have a tube that's going to allow that ink to run flawlessly. That's it. You can't run a good line without good ink flow. There's no way around it. You can't take a rattle can and spray a good line if the rattle can's half empty and not getting good flow. Like you've got to have good flow to get a good line. But anyways, back to working at the True Tubes booths. I like working conventions at True Tubes because I can just talk about all the products and I've used them since day one. So like I've gone through the evolutions of things and how things come out and I've experimented a lot. But the other thing is it's a really good time to follow Derb around and hear him talk to like other shop owners and other convention promoters and things like that. And that's the best way for me to just like just stand there and just listen to them and meet people. And, you know, I've also learned that there's a lot to, Derb knows so many people that he knows really good, respectable people. And he knows people that have, well, we'll say they've got blemished histories within the communities. And he's a really good person for me, because he and we talk very candidly with one another. And one of the things that I enjoy is that he'll talk to me about how like he's known this artist for 20 years and they've grown this way. This person used to be like this, but they're this now. It's really cool to see somebody who's been so personally connected to the community for so long that he knows people. And that goes back to like when I said he was talented about selecting the right people to delegate the right things. Like he really pays attention to people, and he really like, he's very forthright. He's very honest. You know what I mean?
And to that point, people change too, right? And he's changed, right? Like, he used to have suffer on his throat, right? Like, so he knows what it's like, you know, whatever it was that made him.
And that's exactly the point that I'm getting at, is he talks to me about how people have grown as tattooers. It's not, I don't necessarily mean it in a negative thing, but like, you know, this person used to be a skater punk. Person used to do this. This person used to, and like to see how people have grown and have their own studios, or to see like people that came from just working really hard and like, you know, they climb through the ranks and they make things of themselves. It's really cool to, you know, I might not necessarily have any other way to like know the weight of some of these artists. You know, when you're at a show and you're surrounded by 300 or 400 artists, everybody's the cream of the crop in their town. Everybody, you know what I mean? So it's really hard to like, who do I need to know? Like who is going to help me be a better artist, and who is going to help me make other artists better artists? And Derb's a really good person. Like he'll be like, pay attention to this person. Like, this is somebody you want to follow. This is somebody you want to know. This is who invented this. This is who did this. And I couldn't have that firsthand knowledge from anybody else. And then to top it off, at Red Tree, we've got Marty. So on top of all the connections and stories Derb has, I can hear things from Marty that goes back to the early 70s. And it's like between Derb and Marty, I don't know if all the other artists at Red Tree realize like how special it is and how much history we have in the building, because like being from Columbus, everybody knows Marty's name because he's been tattooing forever. But I don't know if everybody realizes how special he is to the whole entire tattoo community. Those of us that started tattooing like Cherry Creek Flash and Fairy Flash, and we wouldn't have that if it wasn't for Marty. You know what I mean?
Oh, he did. Was it you that did the interview with him, or was it during one of the virtual tattoo gatherings? We got like an hour-long interview with him. Maybe it was Derb. But
it was probably Derb.
No,
I actually really want to get. I would. One of the reasons I want to do an evening show with Marty is just so we can like pop up on the other side of his window and just like bombard him during one of his like, yeah, he's got so many people that he's been working on for years and years. And there are a handful of clients that he has. Marty doesn't smoke. I really hope to smoke weed with him sometime, but he doesn't smoke. He sometimes will come to our smoking area and he'll just stand. He'll be like, I just like the smell of it, but he won't smoke with us. But he's got a few clients who like to smoke before their sessions. So I'm their smoking buddy during their sessions with Marty. So some of those clients, they've got so many stories about Marty, and they bring things up and they get Marty talking. And I just love being like close enough to just hear those stories candidly. Like it's not,
absolutely.
It's not even like I'm asking to, it's like, it's just being gifted upon me to hear all of this stuff. So I definitely would love to, I mean, we could probably make it a regular thing if we could schedule it. But I'd love to have a lot of input from Marty on the show.
Yeah, well, he's like you were saying, a real treasure. And same thing with, like I said, with Derb. I agree wholeheartedly. Um, there, there are clearly amazing people, like them in the industry that more than make up for all the fucking shit and fucking slosh that you have to get through to get to them.
I mean,
And
I feel like in today's age, it's getting fewer and further between that you've got to deal with like scuzz buckets and harsh personalities and things like that. I think
yeah,
people are realizing that
I'm still a little fresh off. I'm still licking my wounds a little bit. True, it's true.
it's
There's
getting
no question
better.
about it.
It's getting better.
It is getting way better.
It's getting better.
But yeah. Well, hey, we definitely should be wrapping this up, though. Again, I know that you can go on for another 2 or 3 hours, and I could go on for another 2 or 3 hours. But
We'll just have to do it again.
We'll have to do it again. And I'm excited to catch up at the BYOB. So you're coming out in October?
Yeah, I still have to arrange a house sitter, but I've got a couple of options in mind. But yeah, I'm probably taking the handy dandy van, loading up all the equipment, and seeing how much trouble we can get into.
Awesome. Well, we will get into the exact amount of trouble that is allowed by the law and the health departments.
The exact amount plus one.
Yeah. Plus one, you can't go too far. You don't know how too far is until you go a little too far and then come back.
That's what plus one. Oh, that was too
exactly,
far.
Yeah,
that was too far.
Yeah, but awesome. Well, we'll catch up tomorrow at noon.
Awesome, man.
Every Thursday at noon, and let's give the camera one good introduction, who you are and how people can find you and communicate with you, how to get tattooed by you.
My name's Fawn Baker. The best way to get in touch with me, you can DM me on Instagram or through my webpage, fawnbaker.com. My Instagram is Fawn Baker. Everything's Fawn Baker. I keep it pretty easy. You can find me every week on the Tattoo Collecting Podcast, Thursdays at noon on the Reinventing platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, Damon, Michelle, anybody else that was in the chat room. And it's really exciting. I love being on this side too. I got to have awesome conversations with people like you.
Yeah, it's nice talking.
We'll catch up.